Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Ihsan.
And I'm Erick Mertz.
And this is episode 73 of the podcast, and it's June 22nd, 2022. That's a lot of twos as we record this.
Yeah, that is.
Our main topic today is editing passes and AI software. Our podcast is sponsored by our patrons at patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan, IHSAN. And our hosting is covered. I don't know if you knew this or not. Our hosting is covered by our patrons as of now.
Thank you so much.
So my next push goal is actually kind of personal in Patreon. If I can get like another $20 on the Patreon, then I can buy an extra tank of gas so that I can go see my dad who's aging and needs extra help. And, but gas
Where are you getting gas
crazy.
For $20?
No. Like if I can, well, that's true. That was an old.
That's like a gallon.
That was before the Ukraine thing happened.
Right.
So,
yeah, this isn't 1993 or whatever.
Yeah.
I love watching old movies when they drive past a gas station. Right. And you can see like in Die Hard, there's a gas station scene and gas is like 86 cents or something. And it makes me so mad to see that. You can fill your car.
I looked at a gas station placard or whatever, it was $5.55.
I think you posted
that was for regular too. It was $5.80 something for the premium.
We just got a plug-in car and I am like maniacal about plugging that thing in. Like I calculate trips for like.
That's exciting. I didn't know you had an electric car.
It gets 45 miles on a charge and I'm just like, everything we do from now until sanity returns has to be within 45 miles.
What happens if it's not?
We just do it and I don't sweat it, but it's,
do you like to stop at gas stations and plug it in? Are there places like that now?
Stop at just random people's houses. Can we plug this in for 13 hours and get this thing full?
No, service stations.
Oh, I guess we could. It hasn't even been a month. Haven't put gas in a month, which is
what kind of car is it?
It's a Toyota RAV4.
Oh, nice.
They have a plug-in.
Is it a hybrid?
Yeah. So it plugs in. It goes until the battery dies, and then as soon as the battery dies, it kicks into gas, but as soon as it kicks into gas, it starts charging the battery again. So you could theoretically. Drive for 45 miles, go to gas, charge it up over the next 100 miles, and then go back to, it works. It works real well. But this isn't a car podcast, is it now?
No, it's not. What are you reading? It's a book podcast. What are you reading?
Well, I'll admit it. I went with the siren song of the Multnomah County Library, and I was reading that book last week. I wasn't loving it, The Shadow of What Was Lost, and I picked up. This is my trashy reading. So I picked up a sports book. It's about the Portland Trail Blazers. It's just like a big book about basketball that I can sit outside and read and occupy zero brain power. It's been great. So I'm reading a book I think it's called Jailblazers or Bad Boys or something like that. I don't know. It's the library. The library conspires to kind of blow up my TBR. I don't know if I'm going back to The Shadow of What Was Lost. The longer we've been apart, the more I see that book for what it is. And
the flaws, all the red flags.
So I might not
got to break up with it.
I may break up with it, which I'll feel bad because it's nice and thick and it looks good on your shelf. But then we also got a little library, one of those little.
Oh, in front of your house?
We're gonna debut it this coming weekend, and
that's exciting.
That book might end up in the little library.
And I hope your own books will be there too.
I kind of feel guilty, but like when I bought it for my wife for her birthday, I thought this would be a great way just to like
get your books into the world. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, no one will know this is marketing.
FYI, in the show notes, when I put down what books we're reading, I have big book about basketball, Jailblazers or Bad Boy, I don't know. So please send me the title, text it to me today, and I'll put it actually in the show notes. Otherwise, no one's going to know what book that is. I'm reading Project Hail Mary. It's been it's been out for a long, long time, and I heard such rave reviews, and I'm not a sci-fi reader, but
Mhm.
I heard that this was, a riveting book. Just, even if you didn't read sci-fi. And so far that's proved to be true. I'm quite a ways into it. It's a big book, but I'm
It's
maybe
back there somewhere.
maybe a quarter of the way in, and it is riveting. I totally want to know what's going to happen. So that's what I'm
That's on
reading.
my list. It's in the stack somewhere. So you're saying it's quarter of the way in. You're still
Yeah.
dancing with it.
Yeah, yeah. And a quarter of the way in is a lot of pages because it's a big book.
It's a big, yeah. My mom got it for me, and she's like, "This is a big book. You're gonna love it." Like that was the criteria for like whether or not I was gonna like a book. It's real big.
That's a great criteria, Mom. Thanks.
My mom is the best book enabler in the world. Mom just always, she works at a used bookstore, and you just give her titles or publishers. I'll tell her like
Mhm.
get anything with Tor books on it, and then like a week later I'll have like 50 Tor titles in a
Nice.
shopping bag. So she doesn't cook like she used to, but she enables books like no other. So thanks, Mom.
All right. So, what is your process, Eric, when it
Oh
comes to
boy.
editing? How many passes do you what do you mean by editing passes?
So are we talking about personal self-editing passes before I go to outside?
Yeah,
So for me,
or
it's
both,
it's it's
you know, the
it's
whole
evolving.
process.
It's an evolving process. I'll say that. Um, I think probably 2 years ago I was less confident, and now I feel pretty confident that this is what I'll do. I I have a writing group that I work with, and I've worked with them since 2020. So it's been 2 years. It doesn't sound like a long time, but I think at this amount of time, I know everybody offers me like as far as content goes, they all offer different insights. Like, and so I look at that like my content edit pass. I send them, they're going through the book chronologically. They are they are they are giving me feedback on the criteria of, is this a satisfying read as a standalone? Is this a satisfying read in the series? So I feel confident that that's my content editing pass.
Can you
For
describe that a
me,
little bit more? I mean, what is do you like meet weekly and go through 5 pages at a time, or, what is
we
that
meet,
sounds like
but
a long time to go through a book.
yeah, yeah, it is, and that might be, the thorn in my side when it comes to this. So it's bi-weekly, and it's 8,000 words every other week. So 50, 40,000, 16 weeks you can get to 40,000 words. In a year you could do 80, so 30. Yeah, so do the math. Like it it's effective. So then they take the pass. We all have a week to read the things, and then we make comments, and then we sit in a Zoom room like this, and each submission comes up, everybody comments on it for 6 minutes, and then the writer gets time to ask questions. Um, and so it is slow. You're right, it is slow, and I also feel like it, because these people have read, now this is book number, they're into book number 3, which nobody else is at this point, which makes me feel sort of like really trusting with them, since I
Mhm.
haven't really even talked about what I'm doing with the next book. I think if I were going on a new series, I might go with an outside person, um, which I am debating doing kind of a side series within this series later this year. So yeah, that's
Call
my
of
first
Sandor.
pass. Pardon?
What is his name? Sandor? Is that his name? The Call of Sandor? What's your person's name? The side character.
Oh, Sandoval.
Sandoval, not Sandor. The Call of
Yeah, I have a
Sandoval.
book. Yeah, I have a Sandoval book, and then I've also kind of been thinking about doing like a sort of something in the paranormal mystery series that's not this.
Mhm.
Um, and so if I were going to do that, I'd look, the rate that I write and I want to publish is going to test any editing process, and
Mhm.
I'm willing to admit that. And so it will come down to a point where I think like I will have to have multiple avenues, because my writing group will not move that fast.
Mhm.
I can't ask them to do 16,000 words. I'm not special, just because I feel like I'm special. So yeah, so that's my first pass. I mean,
Okay.
that's when I get, and I will go, so I will rewrite things, and then I will go back with, if I rewrite something substantially, or if it's a pivotal point, I will take those rewritten passages and I'll bring that to them and ask them to look, so then that'll be my submission. So
So are you
in
bringing
this,
them rough drafts?
oh, right. So my normal writing process is I write I write longhand, and then I will type, and then I usually go back and do just like like a, I don't call it a polish, but just like, I'll go back and I'll add
So
more
straighten.
detail.
You're
Yeah, straighten.
straightening.
Yeah. Like right now I'm doing like I'm working on something, and I wrote the first 1,000 words, and then I had to go back and, rewrite those words. And I got to about 1,500 because I added more color, right? I left
Mhm.
out the temperature. I left out
Yeah.
you know, the adjectives. So I left out
And
all
then you
that.
give that draft to your critique group.
Yeah. And then they'll
And
go
then you
through and
and then you edit it at that point, or do you just like save it and set it aside so that you can keep the same?
now I am right. That's a great question, because before I was writing way ahead of what they were editing, because they were moving slower than I was
Mhm.
writing. So I would have to sort of get refreshed with the submission, submit it, and then decide if I needed to work on it right then, or if I could just put that into the next big pass. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
totally.
Now with Funeral Shadow, I am trying to keep up with the pace of the group, because I feel like it'll be more, because sometimes I'll go back and look at the notes and I'll say, ooh, what does that mean? Or,
Mhm.
and I don't want to ask people to go back and like, what,
Right.
remember in January when you said this about this moment? What did you really mean? So I feel like I need to be a little more on with them. Um, so I'm going to try with this book to be more on with what they're
Does that
looking
mean
at.
you're gonna have to slow down your pace?
What it means is that I'm going to be writing like a lot of associated content around the
Mhm.
novels. I think I talked about this in the
Yeah.
previous. I'm going to be doing like a short story or a novella, like kind of bookending each book. Um, I think I'm just going to have to be writing other things and then
Mhm.
taking those other things elsewhere,
Mhm.
so that I'm able to. It's just gonna. I don't know. I don't know, Val. This is a hard
Okay.
question for me
So
to answer.
you're in transition then,
I think
sounds
so,
like.
because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm always writing. I probably put down like 15,000 words a week, and if I'm only editing 8,
Yeah.
that's hard.
So your
So I got
editing
it.
passes are you write this stuff, you go through it once and straighten it, then you send it to your critique group,
Yeah,
and
and then
so
when I'm
far you've just set it aside and just brought them the next one, but now you're trying to kind of like make their
keep up
changes as they're giving
as
them
they
to
come.
you. Okay.
Yeah, which was summer was a bad time to do that, because Gary, who's in the critique
Mhm.
group, Gary. Um,
You got to get that t-shirt.
yeah, I swear I'm gonna wear it, and one of I'll be
This
like,
will be
hey.
our drinking game.
critique critique group Gary travels a lot, and one of the other members has moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. So now we're all in Oregon, which is fantastic. But that just, those interruptions, we're not going
Mhm.
to get our regular every 2 week thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think this will be an ongoing, when we talk about mastermind conversation or processes that we do, this would be one for, I am really trying to get to the bottom of how am I going to write at the pace I'm writing and make all of this work,
I
editing
just
wise.
had a fabulous idea right here on the podcast. I'm just going to say it. We haven't talked about this at all, but I do book coaching and business coaching. So why don't one of our episodes be an hour
Oh, I
long
love this.
session? I'll just give you a session and we can go through whatever it is that you're needing, assistance on. Like, it sounds like this is something that you would bring,
This would be fun. But I have to, for this episode, I'll have to be on a couch like like it's a scene in a movie where I'm like, you're the shrink and I'm on the couch and because there's
That'll
going to
be
be a
for
lot
our
of hair.
YouTube watchers. It will matter to the podcast.
This will, yeah. So this drives me to distraction all the time. Like, how do I make, how do I make the passes fit?
Okay.
The content part of it fit.
Okay. So then once it's done with the content part and you feel like, okay, this is a book from beginning to end, what do you do with it then?
Pass it off to a line editor because
Okay.
I pass it off and be done with it.
And then after the line editing, you make the changes.
Make the changes. Then I would go back and I don't get a proofreader. Actually, I do. I have like 5 to 10 beta readers on everything.
Okay.
That I through my mailing list, and 2 or 3 of those people are basically proofreaders.
Cool.
So they'll find they'll knit any pick or pick any knit that I ask them to. And well, I don't even have to ask. They just do it naturally. And there's always 3, right? We talked about this. Every self-published book, as soon as you open it up, it's like, oh, that's not the right there. That's not there. So they pick those up and then we're off to the races.
Right on. So mine is slightly different because I no longer use the critique group because I hit that same wall where I didn't want to be bringing rough draft stuff to my critique group. It was messing with my writing process because I can't have the editor brain on while I'm making new words.
Right.
So I will draft it, straighten it, make sure that, all of the insert something here is filled in,
I always, that is something I always do when I put it in develop. I always search for the word insert because
inevitably
one gets through. So when you say, well, I'm going to slow you. So you said draft. Mm-hmm. So take me through a little bit of that. How do you do that? Like you sit down and you just write your organic 1,000 words. Let's just do that. How does that?
Well, I plot it out first. So I pull up the Scrivener document and, okay, this is the scene where I'm writing blah, blah, blah. So I'll write that scene. Yeah. So right now, I guess I'm stepping ahead. Yeah. So yeah, I just draft, I just write. It's just I write straight through as much as I can, and that depending on what's happening in my world can take 2 months or, 12 months.
Right.
But yeah, I'll just draft it all out. And that's all I'm doing is just making new words and making the book. And then after that, I print it off. So I have it on paper, double spaced, and I go at it with markers,
12-point font.
Yep. I just write it out. And then I make all my notes on the hard copy. And then I put those changes into Scrivener and straighten. And then pretty much at that point, I go through, I just got this book yesterday. I've been waiting impatiently for it. It's the workbook for the writing scene book that Jay did. And so
it's a great cover.
I am going to,
I love it.
It's all full of, not templates. What do you call these?
Like work exercises and stuff.
Yeah, but they're all the same. So you go through every single scene in your book and in 3 sentences or less, what's happening in this scene? Why is this scene important? What are you trying to say about the world or about this life? How do you want the reader to feel when they read this scene? What's wrong with the protagonist's world? And you go through like the character voice and then do that conflict, choice, consequence that we talked about last week for every scene. So that is, I guess I do that globally first, but that's sort of part of my plotting process. So now I'm in revision and I go through the scenes, make sure I have the conflict, choice, and consequence for each scene or chapter, depending on how that book worked its way out. And then I have to do a settings pass because sometimes I do that first. So these kind of go in different orders based on the individual book. Like it's just different with every book.
You probably have a different feeling for what you missed in every manuscript, right?
Yeah. So after I've got the draft and I've straightened it and made my initial one pass through, and then I do the the workbook, the 3 C's for the 3 acts and globally. And then I go through, make sure there's setting in it and senses and the theme too, making sure that story hypothesis is working its way out in the book. And then I go through and do the 3 C's for each scene or chapter, which is what I'm going to do right now in my memoir revision. And then after that's all done, then I'll run it through Pro Writing Aid, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I send it to the line editor and then make the changes like you. And then I will do another Pro Writing Aid pass, which is my proofreader.
Okay. So you're counting on the AI software to do that.
Yeah.
So something else.
It's been through the line editor too, though.
Right.
So it's not just me. I do personally 1, 2, at least 3 passes for various reasons. More depending on, like you said, what's wrong with the book as I'm writing it, the feel of it. And then I send it to a professional. I'm a professional, but I can't see all of my errors, I'm too close to it. So I get somebody else. Oh, I forgot one whole step. Oh my God. When I'm drafting, after I'm done drafting and I've made my straightening and I go through the 3 C's and all of that, I send it to, I get the story diagnostic, what I did for you on that last book.
Oh yeah.
So I have that content developmental assessment. And then I make those, then I revise at that point, because there's probably like actual rewriting that needs to be done at that point.
Right.
And then I go through the scene, the 3 C's per scene, and add in, anything that's missing and make those changes, add more setting, whatever it is that I need. And then I send it to the line editor. So I do 2 professional editing passes in addition to maybe 3 of my own personal. And then I use the Pro Writing Aid to catch any passive voice or grammatical errors or word choice thing or whatever,
Before we jump into AI editors, I should add that I forgot this thing that I always do is I do a time pass. Does the time in the story make sense? Because I am
really messed up with that right now.
It's so hard. It's in a book, in a series. I mean, unless it's a short story, which I think that's the joy of a short story. It's just gonna the timeline is, you can't, I don't know how you could struggle with a timeline in a short story, but with a novel that's fitting into a jigsaw puzzle, did I cite the right start date, end date? Did he say something, if he's referring to something that happened in the last book, did he say a year ago when it was 3 months ago? I have to make sure that all those timelines pass. And then
also,
I do what I call,
you also have different timelines within the book too. You do a little,
yeah. And this next one, I'm not doing any.
Okay.
I'm doing no flashbacks. I'm doing
no flashbacks for you.
Inserted stories, because it's funny because Gary, I'm gonna have a drink every time I say Gary. Gary says, like, the first 2 books had like wonky timelines and they work, but he said you might, like, on your 3rd book, just try to do like a linear story where everything happens within the story. And I think that's, like, he read my mind, because I needed that. But I also do like a names pass and like a place names pass and a lore pass, just to make sure that I'm developing that, like, that everything builds on the lore before. I want to make sure that if it was up to 5, I don't know, if it was like a lore 5 in one book, that it's a lore 6, that it's moving things forward, that you're not getting the same stuff, so that things are changing. So I do that too. But let's talk about go ahead.
That with the memoir that I'm doing, because I'm compressing time and moving things around so that the literary arc is there. That means that scenes that I've written about winter and scenes that I've written about summer are right next to each other. And so I have to, yesterday when I was working on the book, I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to I don't even know how to look for that anymore. I think I might have to print it all out again, just so I can see it a little bit better. I don't know, but that's what I'm struggling with right now.
The storyline pass is messes up the chronology pass, like the logic pass, the story logic pass. That's tough.
Yeah. So
my God, I'd pull my hair out. I would. That would be really challenging.
Well, it's a unique quirk of memoir writing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm working on one for a client right now, and it's like there's so many things where, three things are happening at once, but if you're telling this part of the story, and then now you've got to take one of those layers out and move it over here.
Hmm.
And it's hard, yeah, when you're the person that lived it to look at that and say, hey, these things all happened at the same time. Why are they in different chapters? Yeah.
Well, even me, I understand that. And I was doing it on purpose. And then even yesterday, I was starting to move
Right.
scenes around and script like, oh, no, this happened when I was, and then I had to stop myself. No, I put it here on, it's supposed
Right.
to be here for the story purposes.
Right. Right. And that ultimately is what rules, right?
Yeah, it's all about the story. So what AI software do you use? Anything?
I don't.
Okay.
But this is where I'm glad we're going to go with this, because I'm considering it. I mean, I get the offers from both Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid and all those things, like 10% off or lifetime. So I think my inhibition around those is that the little squigglies and all that stuff are very interruptive to me. Like, I try to tune all that stuff out.
I mean, when you're
And
drafting?
yeah, and so I know that it's all like, but I don't know, I guess I don't know how reliable those things are. Like, talk to me about how you use them effectively, how you use them, particularly with voice, right? Because I feel like some of that stuff can be really restrictive on.
Well, in Pro Writing Aid, you can choose which, if it's general nonfiction, if it's fantasy, if it's mystery,
And so
you
how would it
can,
do that different? Like, how would it treat general nonfiction versus fantasy, which are
because the AI knows, like there's some algorithm or something that knows what kind of language, what words are used, what sentence structure is, like if you're writing an academic paper, it's going to have a different sentence structure than if you're writing, a contemporary romance. The sentences
and
are
it
going to be
would
longer.
right.
They're going to, more passive voice might be allowed because academic writing tends to be a little bit more like that. And yeah, so that's the AI part. It
And so
knows.
it would know weird words, right? If you're doing fantasy, you're going to have made up
Yeah, so it
words.
pulls up. So yeah, you have a so it integrates with Scrivener, which I love because I use Scrivener. There's
Right.
also an add-on for Word, which I use for my editing clients too, because I, do my own pass and then I plug it into Pro Writing Aid just to make sure, it picked up stuff that I missed. So I go through my client work twice, and it will show you if a word doesn't make sense, like a fantasy name or something like that, you can add it
Right.
to the dictionary. So then it will
Right.
remember that and you won't have to like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. I want to say that. It won't keep doing that for you. You can ignore something if it pops up and says, la, 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 this is not right. And you say, nope, this is what I wanted to say. You can just ignore that. So it just highlights, it just scans the whole document, picks out all the, alarm words or passive voice or
Right.
whatever it is that it's picking up. And then you go through them systematically and either ignore them or change them or add them to the dictionary. So it learns as you're working on the document.
Mhm.
So that is how I use Pro Writing Aid.
If anyone is listening and not watching, that I just gave that look to the sky was like, I should buy that, because
And I
I think
have
what
a discount code. The link is in the show notes.
we did not rehearse that anyway, I promise. Well, look, I think my aversion to any of that AI editing stuff is that the word dictionary, which we all grew up on, or we used the squigglies, right? I brought up the
Mm-hmm.
red and blue squigglies. They are so unreliable, right? It's like, if you have any character that's speaking with any sort of, I always think of Hagrid from
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter, like Hagrid. If you were just to go on a grant, like Hagrid's, you have to. It's hard to read out loud because
Mm,
you have to like look at it and go, what is he trying to say here, and how do
yeah.
I put this in the brogue? So that would drive me nuts, because it would, like, it's going to find, oh, that's going to be wrong. So if you could tune that out and just say leave dialogue alone or something, which is why it's what I like about Final Draft,
You
the
can.
screenwriting software, is you can tell it, don't look for anything in dialogue.
So you can change it in Pro Writing Aid. I don't know about the other ones, but in Pro Writing Aid, you can ask it to look for grammar and punctuation, or you can ask it to look for passive voice, sentence structure. You know, there's like, I think there's 4 different, they're all color coded too. Like there's the red dot and the blue dot and the,
Right,
pink dot. They all mean different things. And so I usually just pull them all up. But sometimes after I've done one pass and I feel confident in the amount of passive voice I've left in, I just want to check one more time for the typos. I'll just ask it to do that. So it's not pulling up, more stuff, because it's just more time consuming to go through all the pull-up stuff. But we are out of time.
We are there.
Yeah, there are other AI softwares. It's not all about Pro Writing Aid, guys. There is Grammarly. You brought that up. There is AutoCrit. Those are the 3 main ones that I hear floating around in the writing industry. Either,
Those are the 3 I've heard.
yeah. There obviously are more, will be more. And they all have like trials too. So you could go try Pro Writing Aid and for their like 14-day trial or 30-day trial. I forget how long it is. And just, plug a couple of your short stories in and see if it would drive you crazy. But it's not going to have the red squigglies because it doesn't activate until you turn it on.
Right.
So it doesn't interfere with your drafting.
And if anybody out there has a process that they use, like, Val prints something out and does it by hand. I don't. There's some difference there. Like, what do you do? Is there anything you add to that mix of, from draft to publish? We'd love to know.
Right on. Okay. Happy writing, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Writing, yeah. Have
Bye-bye.
a great week.